Hi, hope you're doing well. This is going to be a continuation of our series on the Israeli-Iran war. I've got it labeled a prelude to the Gog-Magog war because that's where I think it's ultimately going to lead to. I could be totally wrong, but ultimately, I do believe that the Gog-Magog war is very near, and it also believe that the rapture is very near, and so forth. I believe that the tribulation is not too far away, and that's why it's so important for us to reach out and share the gospel with everyone around us because going through that is a horrific ideal, and we don't want anyone to do that. You know, if you're a Christian, you have the beautiful promise from Jesus Christ that He's going to come and take us to be with Him, and that He's gone to prepare a place for us, and that we have this promise that we'll meet Him in there. And I think that's very soon. Uh, so I started off my series. This is going to be the third part of that, and basically the first part was prelude to the Gog-Magog war, his introduction of what I was thinking was taking place, and then the second was the prelude to the Gog-Magog war, the focus on actual 38 and 39, which is the actual where it talks about the Gog-Magog war. So those are the main things I was getting involved in. Secondly, what's taking place now with the bombing, America bombing the facilities, nuclear facilities in Iran. We'll see ultimately what happens out of that. Uh, uh, Hard to say exactly what's going to take place, but I do think that ultimately what we're going to probably wind up seeing is, uh, at least in the short term, terrorist attacks. I think we're starting to see that right now. We saw a bombing of a church in Syria, shooting and bombing a church in Syria. There was a shooting today as well in Michigan, in the United States. We don't know who's behind that. That was just a lone wolf guy, or was he motivated by Islam, or he's just a one of these left wing radical guys. Who knows? But we have the guy who was in Colorado that recently, made a makeshift flamethrower and tried to burn some Jews who were walking for uh, Israel. So you have that going on, and then you have obviously you had a guy who tried to set off a bomb, or was planning on setting off a bomb at the Oklahoma football stadium. Apparently, he was a guy who converted to Islam. That was in Norman, Oklahoma. And that's weird because it's the second time. There was actually one who did it as well in 2005. He actually blew himself up. And actually, if you watch that game, it was a game in which you could probably go back and see it, but it was a game in which Oklahoma was playing. I think it's Texas Tech, and it was a night game. And if you watch the recording, I listened to it, and you could hear the explosion take place, and it was a very loud explosion, and it was really downplayed at that time because it was around 2005, and they didn't want it to seem like there was terrorist attacks happening from Islamic people during that period of time. They were really good about brushing stuff under the rug, which I thought was horrific that they did that. But you have a serious problem with people who are in fact um, uh, promoting violence from Islamic sources, and getting these people to that they convert to Islam to commit these acts. So I would say that's probably in the short term what we would be seeing is more terrorist type attacks, most likely. But ultimately, if this does lead to the Gog-Magog war, which is the premise of my whole series, is that ultimately I believe that these things are happening, or going to eventually occur. And you got to remember that in Ezekiel 30:39, when I brought this up, one of the key points that it talks about is that Russia will get pulled into that, and Russia gets pulled into it almost like against their will. And that was really going to be the focus of this video. So Russia gets kind of pulled into it, and it says that in verse 4 of chapter 38, he says, I will turn you about and put hooks in your jaws, and I will bring you out in all your army. And he goes, and horsemen and so forth. Dragging them against their will is the concept here. Something they don't see this in their own best interest, maybe, but they're getting pulled into it, almost like against their will. This isn't something they want to get involved in. This is something they get involved in because it's almost out of necessity, but not out of want. And I think that is what we're starting to see. There was a post, somebody was posting this, and I have to do some more vetting on that. But I did see where someone was posting about Putin saying, and a site was posting it. Putin was warning about them getting involved in this war, and they didn't want America going into Iran and so forth. It's something exactly like that that could get them uh, pulled into this war and drawn into this war where they put together a coalition to invade Israel. How it all plays out, who knows? But it is very clear that that's what's going to take place. So we need to be praying and being aware of this, and just thinking about it. But those are the key things I was looking at. So be aware of your surroundings if you're at church or things like that, because right now, I think that's going to be some things we need to be aware of. Secondly, anywhere there's really, I think that's those terror cells and sleeper cells, things like that, are going to be active. And who knows with open borders, how many people came across the border that were, from sympathies with Iran and have an Islamic jihadist type of background, and will be committing type of attacks. So we need to be aware of that and be aware of your surroundings. Just play it safe. But other than that, we need to be praying. I mean, that's more important than anything else. We need to be praying for the people of Iran, praying for the people that, the people of Persia. They don't want this war, I'm sure. They just want peace. The people in Israel, they just want peace. People in the United States just want peace. But governments, they have their animosities and issues, and and there's real fears. Why are you building nuclear factories underground if you don't even plan on making nuclear weapons? And why would you want to be doing these with ballistic missiles and threatening Israel and saying you're going to destroy Israel and say you're going to destroy the United States? Well, if you keep saying it enough, people have to believe those threats. If you say things, people believe those threats. If you didn't mean them, you wouldn't say them. And then giving ballistic missile technology to people like Houthis and Hezbollah and others, okay, well then what's to stop you from giving nuclear material to those groups and them launching one into Israel or into the United States or whatever? I mean, those are kind of things that you have to take those threats serious. So everybody's complaining about Trump bombing these facilities. I honestly, as a Christian, I don't want war at all. I don't want anyone dying. But those facilities need to be eliminated because, unfortunately, there really is a real threat. These radical groups will use them against population centers. And when they tell you that they want to kill you and destroy you, and that's part of their religion, you have to believe it. Nothing's going to sway them from that. When somebody truly believes that this is their end times, belief system, you have to understand you're not going to sway them from not believing that. So, be aware of that. So I just think we need to be in prayer. Number one, trust in the Lord, not being fearful. But I do think that the Iran Gog-Magog war is probably nearing. We need to keep an eye on Israel, keep an eye on Russia, how these things happen. But the focus that I want to get on, just 38 verse 4, was that it's about the hooks being put in and dragged out there. So how this will spin out will be interesting to know. But America entering the war is fascinating, especially when you get into the part where it talks about God will use a sword against this coalition of nations, which I talked about previously in the last verse. I won't belittle that point, but in verse 21, where it talks about the sword of chapter 38, I believe that could be America. So you get a chance, you can check that out. I won't read it now, but it talks about the sword that God will bring against this coalition that's coming up against Israel. And I think that sword could very well be the United States. And this could change the whole dynamic of economy and everything else, and the global economy, and how it could disrupt it and everything else. And in that process, you could see where this new coalition of alliances will be formed, bringing about, I believe, potentially the Beast Empire, which be centered in the West. And that Beast Empire will then use that to ultimately usher in a new economic global system, as we know it's the mark of the beast from Revelation 13. So interesting times are afoot. We, as Christians, we certainly need to be praying, be looking up, trusting in the Lord, be alert and aware, just like He tells us and warns us. And other than that, I hope your family's safe. Hope you are. Keep looking up, keep praying, stay in God's Word. And I'll see you next time. God bless.